This is Lisa.
And this is Lana.
We are two old friends,
A nurse.
and an actor who are both
Taking care of our parents.
This is a podcast about what to expect when you're not expecting it.
I got some troubles and I don't know what to do. I got some worries and I share them all with you. Sometimes we'll talk it out, or maybe scream and shout. It's always easy when I see you through with you, 'cause we are two old friends talking to old friends. Not too old.
Your parents might not be able to stay there 8 hours. That's a long day for them.
Yeah. They write a lot of lists, but don't actually do them?
Yeah,
That's appalling. How dare they?
Two old friends talking to old friends.
It's the holidays. So Home for the Holidays is here to help you with this tricky time.
And it just even gets trickier as your parents get older.
That's the truth. We'll give you a bunch of things that you're going to want to look for to see where they're at, and maybe they are struggling.
And then we'll talk about the holidays, the celebrations, the dinners, the traditions, especially if your parents are still hosting.
So how can we help? What traditions might need to change to simplify those holidays?
And finally, if your parents are in the later stages of maybe dementia or an illness, how do we make sure that our parents are safe,
Included.
and happy during the holidays?
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Let's get started.
The holidays is like this pivotal time. People come home,
And everybody's together.
everybody's together, and we get to see what's going on with your folks. And sometimes it's really dramatic, right? Sometimes it's like the difference from when you saw them the last visit to now is pronounced.
As a healthcare professional, very official sounding.
Nurse, Lana.
So you'll see more activity and questions coming into the physician's office
Yeah.
after the holidays.
That makes sense because you come home and you're like, oh my God.
I need help.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
What do we do? And so a lot of times they'll call the doctor first and
Okay.
say, where do we start? And there's lots of different things that they can do. They can do memory testing. They can send home care into the home, do an assessment of what is their living situation, what are
Okay.
they seeing. These are maybe some things that could be done to help, or we're kind of beyond that and we
Right.
need to talk about other options.
And I think sometimes people are surprised by that because they're like, how did we miss this? How did we not see what was happening? And there are a bunch of reasons for that. One is they're really good at hiding it. My dad was really good at hiding some of his cognitive issues with language sometimes by making up other words. And I think he did that for many years with the MS. And so you just felt like it's a quirk of dad, so they can hide things for a long time until they can't hide it anymore.
I've seen humor
Oh, yeah.
and laughing, and so it almost seems like they're understanding and tracking because they're laughing and things like that. But and that's easy to do on the phone.
Yep.
If you're out of state.
Right. Right. You can
Yeah.
until you see it. I think also that generation that most of us who are caring for our parents are taking care of is a very independent. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Don't ask for
I
help.
can take care of myself.
Yep. So they can do that until they can't.
Right.
The other one is I think that our parents will sometimes cover for the other parent. You said that with your in-laws.
Yeah. My father-in-law had the physical illness of Parkinson's.
Okay.
So we really didn't know how much he was helping her
Yep.
with her memory, getting the grocery, those types of things.
Yep.
And we just assumed that she had a higher functioning than she actually was.
Got it.
Because he was taking care of her quite a bit
Yep.
until he couldn't. And then we saw it. Yeah.
And you saw it. And I think incrementally things happen. We talked about that one time a bit. It seems like it comes on slow and in little tinky pieces. And I don't know about you, but I often can be like, oh, yeah, no big deal.
They're also minimizing it.
Yes.
You may have one incident and you think, okay, well, that's one thing. And then you start to see other things compound. And
Absolutely.
Then it paints a bigger picture.
It's, you once said it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water.
Yeah. So that story is awful.
It's an awful story. I hate it so
But
much.
I think part of that is just you don't realize until it's almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you have to make a decision.
Yeah. If it comes little, like the water is warm, you're fine, it's not a big deal, it doesn't really matter, and suddenly the water is boiling, and I truly do hate that story. But it is accurate for taking care of our parents.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, water's boiling. So let's go through some of the subtle things that you can notice, some of the ways that you can get ahead of that. Let's first look at what managing the house looks like. When you worked at home care, you take a quick scan of the house.
So we live in Michigan. So even things like, they can't remove the snow anymore and they don't want to pay for it. So that's one sign.
Yep.
They can't take their garbage out anymore.
Yep.
And even I noticed just the garbage in the house. So there's the garbage in the kitchen, but then there's garbage in the bathroom and there's garbage, just that simple
an extra
act
bag
of,
sitting next to it. We'll get to that later. I think there's a lot of we'll get to that later.
Yes.
If you see that they're avoiding things, that is also a clue. Another thing you'll see a lot of is leaving the burner on. If you're there and all of a sudden it's on multiple times. I've done it a few times, but it's repeated. Or what was the other one? Oh, things in random places where it's like, why is the sugar bowl in the bathroom? Like, that's more of a dementia or a cognitive issue, but that is something where you're like, and again, we go, that's weird. But no, it's multiple things. It's a sign.
When we walked into the kitchen, there was just things all over the counter. And some of these things might be normal. Maybe that's your parents have always lived that way. That's fine. My parents did not live that way. They were very clean and tidy. And so that was a change of seeing things all over the kitchen counter.
Right.
Bills stacked up, things organized in piles. It was almost a visual of them trying to organize their mind of, okay, this is going to get done. Lists, sticky notes, like trying to get going and, get these things done, but it's just shuffling papers and nothing really gets.
I feel like that sounds like me.
Right.
I'm like, wait, they write a lot of lists, but don't actually do them?
Yeah, exactly.
That's appalling. How dare they? How embarrassing. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good one. And you also mentioned once, not only were the bills piled up, but they were unpaid. And,
yes.
And you were
late notices. Yes. Yeah.
So that means they're having a hard time navigating, the checkbook, the stamps, there's so many things. I mean, and I know I'm saying old-fashioned words, but they're not going to do it online. So they're writing out that check. Do they have to get new checks? Do they have to get more stamps and find an envelope? And there's a lot of steps in that, plus navigating what is in the account. Do they have that? Was it transferred? There's a lot of management in those things that we take for granted, but once it's overwhelming, it's overwhelming.
Well,
so
it's called executive functioning. So there's managing bills and accounts and things like that's executive cognition, and they cannot do it.
Yep.
Managing deadlines and things like that. So you come in and they have a list of things that you need to do. And that's very irritating, but they don't have, well, number one, they can't remember that this needs to be done. So they write it down, but they don't have the energy, their executive functioning to see, like, how do I get this done? So they need your help, and they just keep adding to that list. So if you come every month, it's going to be a long list.
And what happens to us sometimes is, one, we either blow things off like, oh, it's no big deal, mom's a little bit messy right now. Or you just find yourself like, oh, God, this stupid list, I'm so sick of this. That's where our awareness has to kick in, where we have to say, wait, this is happening a lot. As opposed to, I'm just annoyed. It's, these are things that are out of the norm. There's an issue here. And how much am I helping and how much is it they are just incapable of doing things? And if your parents were always messy, you may ignore this one.
Yeah.
But if they weren't, then you're seeing a change in behavior.
So another thing when we're talking about household signs, red flags, or maybe they're pink flags, but
some of them are
concerning. We all have the expired dressings. I mean, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. Jam.
Yeah, jam. But when you open the fridge, there's a smell. And then you see things that are obviously expired and they're not being thrown away.
Got it.
Or the canned goods is expired. Or you
Got
may
it.
see duplicates of...
Like bakers will have multiple flours, multiple sugars.
Because that's what they always bought.
Yeah.
You know? And so
they
those
can't
are the
remember
things.
when they're... Okay, I do that with coriander. I have many coriander herbs and also cumin. I'm not sure why, but those are my two.
Yes.
So obviously, don't come into my cupboard because you're
I
going to be
know.
like, there's an executive functioning issue.
There's just a pink flag there, Lisa. It's not a red flag.
So the other kind of changes we're looking for are physical changes too. It's if you notice that they haven't gotten their hair cut or washed in a long time, or their clothes the laundry is piled up and they're wearing dirty clothes. Things are a little bit smelly.
You know, they're not shaving.
Nails are long.
Yes.
Fingernails or toenails are long.
Makeup. You know, and part of that, too, could just be a visual problem that they may not be seeing well.
Yeah, could be a sign of cataracts
Yep.
once they start
Yep.
getting the really red cheeks and the blue eyes.
Yep. One of my friends was saying that her mother took her blue eyeliner and used that as her eyebrow pencil.
Ooh.
So couldn't see the color different. You
Yep.
know, it's
Can't
just
see.
little signs where it's
Yep.
like, that's not quite right. Yeah.
Another thing is to look for is weight loss. Mm-hmm. If the clothes are starting to look kind of baggy, and that could be due to not eating or depressed, or maybe there is something physically wrong.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I'll ask is, what have you eaten today?
Yeah, they cannot make a meal.
There's a lot to that. Meal planning, meal prepping, buy the ingredients. You have to have the physical ability to stand, wash the dishes. Yeah. So physical appearance.
What did you say that your dad had a scab on his elbow?
Yep. And I asked him about it. I said, tell me how you got that scab. Well, I fell and they weren't going to tell me about it because I think there's an element too where, I'm their child.
Yeah.
They don't want me to worry. They don't want me to get upset. And so not that they're really hiding things, but they just don't want to burden me with those types of things.
Again, that's part of that generation thing.
Right.
And the thing they also do in that situation is make excuses.
When my dad, not my dad, but my father-in-law, he fell on the lawn and he was watering and he was just, it was no big deal. I just fell on the grass and it was just like a pillow catching me. It was like he was almost trying to say this was an enjoyable experience, and I thought, this is not good,
Wow.
And he would fall and say, well, that wasn't a blood fall, so it wasn't a bad fall.
Oh,
it had to actually
wow.
have blood and guts apparently to count.
I know we talk about falls a lot. My dad would say, I didn't fall. I just slipped to the ground. And you said that the clinical definition of a fall
is you have a change in orientation. So if you are on the bed and you go to the floor,
and it was unintended,
that is a fall.
that is a fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't buy that at all.
No.
But there's a lot of excuses or blame. It's somebody else's fault that it happened.
One of the falls was there was a cutting board, on the counter. So we fell towards the kitchen counter and the cutting board should have stayed there and it moved. So that was why they fell. That
Cutting board did not follow the rules.
No.
Damn cutting board.
Yes.
So along with the falls, sometimes it's just trouble with steps. How difficult is it for them to get up a step? And then, my dad did this and it was so scary. I know he had MS, but when he would move from the wheelchair to his chair, the PT or the physical therapists were always like, it needs to be a controlled move. And his was a turn and a fall into the chair or
flop.
the fall onto the toilet. And it was always like that. I mean, he actually broke the back of the toilet off the wall because he would fall so hard on it. And he did not see that as a problem. But when you're watching that, getting out of the chair and getting into the chair, how is that starting to look? Because you'll be seeing those kinds of changes too.
I've seen that when I did home care. So they'll sit in a recliner, which automatically rocks. And so, I mean, that you sit down and it's ka-chunk and it hits the wall because they just don't have the leg strength. The other thing I see is curbs. So that's an early sign too, where, maybe they can do the step, but they're nervous around a curb.
I'm going to throw this in here, even though I just a random one I just remembered. My mom got new glasses that are transition. She said she was getting really tentative towards steps.
Yep.
And she just read in AARP that it is causing falls. Even though it's helpful eyes, it's in such of, like, if you hit between the bifocal and the far distance, your foot is going to a different spot than it
Your
really
brain
is. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, now it's time for holiday dinner. So these might be some things that you see when you're coming home with your parents.
So you don't live with your parents. This is just when we're at the early stages. And mom's always cooked dinner. She loves being the hostess. We're great coming home. This is just like normal.
What can I bring? No, you don't need to bring anything.
We're
good. We're good.
It's your mom. And she said, I got this. And so you're still the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in that stage anymore, but I remember being in that stage. If mom said she got it, I'd just believe her. And so then off you go, and you're watching the Lions play football, and mom's in the kitchen by herself,
Exactly.
So you're like, she said
we were
she
born
had
in the 1970s.
Hey, the Lions are doing amazing right now.
Yes. You're ready for holiday dinner. So you show up, and you can clearly see they're overwhelmed. They're tired.
Yeah.
It was more difficult.
Yeah.
And it is a lot. It's
a
lot for
I'm
someone.
exhausted when I do it, and I'm not 80.
Right. There's a lot of meal planning, getting that turkey ready. I mean,
and depending on the size of group, I mean, if you're cooking for 40 or something, it's a huge deal. You have to have all the dishes. You have to have chairs all in place.
Yeah, the chairs, the card tables, all the things.
The sheets over the card tables as a tablecloth.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of look back and I'm amazed at how my grandma did it every year.
I know.
I mean, everything was ta-da.
And you just kind of walk in.
Yeah.
I think some of the signs might be that the turkey is either underdone or overdone.
Right. Or it's weird foods that you're like, what is this? It's like, or like forgotten ingredients. I mean, like main ones.
Or just the timing of the meal.
Yeah.
And that, again, on a good day, that's difficult. So let's just acknowledge that.
It is.
But it's even more off.
Proportions are off even.
Yeah. My friend thought, okay, we're going to have mom bring the rolls. So that's easy. You don't have to cook that. And so I think there was 10 people there. She showed up with 50 dinner rolls. So everybody got 5. And you can kind of laugh it off, but there's something that's not quite right there.
Yep.
Where they just can't do the math.
Now, the truth is, if your mom was like this all the time and the turkey was always burnt, my mom always left the sweet potatoes in the oven. I mean, it was just like that. If that's what happens, then you can just say no worries. But if mom always had it done perfectly and it's not this time, then it's something to think about.
Right.
So I think when we talk about what we noticed, let's say that was last year, and to not have a repeat this year, what can we do differently?
Right. So this isn't something that you're thinking about on the way to the event, okay? So this is something that you have to be proactive.
Be proactive. Call them before the holidays come, right? And say, what can I do to help you this year? Maybe they're not at the stage where they have to absolutely not do it, but just because she said she can does not mean she has the energy or the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be more aware of what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that your mom is hydrated and that she's having breaks, that she gets to sit periodically and be like, oh, why don't you cut the carrots over there and I got this? Because she might not navigate her own energy level as well as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mom will say this. In her mind, she can do it.
Right.
She can do it. But physically, she cannot. She gets too tired.
Yeah.
And she knows that.
How do we change this so that it's more doable?
One of the things that I did is I went to my mom's the night before and got all the tables and chairs set up. We got the table set. We got the dishes out. I mean, I tried to space it out so it wasn't all on, the prep wasn't all on the day.
And maybe it isn't having all 40 people at one gathering. Maybe it is smaller gatherings.
Yes. I think it is good to be creative and think about, well, maybe we can do things differently.
Gifts. You know, I'll admit I lived from afar, so I'm not the big gift giver. And it's not one of my love languages. So I'm like, yeah, don't give gifts. Who cares?
Right.
But that's not everybody. Some people love gift giving. That's like their love language. But it is a financial burden as people get older.
It's a lot of money and it's a lot of time, and it's, well, in Michigan, it's slippery, and you're walking into the store and you've got to navigate the store, and you don't have a handicap sticker for your mom. And
Yep.
it really can be a lot.
Maybe it's just each pick one person and say, this is who you get a gift for, and still make it a celebratory time for those people who it means a lot to. Or you said at one point, maybe the gift is just our time together, you know?
Right.
But for the gift givers, they're like, no, it needs to be an actual present that I wrap. But that can be tricky. Again, navigate your parents. If it seems like it's always been sort of a burden, let's take that one off the plate. And if
Simplify.
it is, simplify. And if it's yours, it's important to you, you have to determine whether that is a burden for them to then have to reciprocate. So you might be giving up something that meant something to you, but for the sake of the greater good. I think I just want to touch on the fact that there are little deaths throughout our whole life. And this is one of them, is letting go of the phrase, but we always do it this way. You know, we have a moment where we have to let go of our kids' Christmas, the Christmas that we had when we were little.
Right.
And it's a little death. It's a little moment of letting that go and finding ways to reinvent new traditions out of necessity. I think that's a hard part of this holiday season as our parents get.
Right.
As the season in life is holiday. Lots of seasonings. Is your mom willing to pass the baton? You know, is she open to it being Aunt Susie's house and she oversees it? Is it time? I know my mom would have been like, yes, you take it. And she would have been fine. Your mom would have been like, no, I've got it.
Yes.
Do not take it away from me.
She loves to entertain, and she's good at it. She's a hostess with the mostest.
Would she
She's
be
very
open
good.
to like a potluck Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
If they're open to doing that, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a new fun tradition, and everybody brings their favorite thing.
Well, and I'm all about, so again, I don't really enjoy cooking. So it's fine if we got everything. It doesn't bother me if things are prepared. Bob Evans. I mean, we had that one year where we bought the meal. I think D&W, you can go up for $50 and you got the whole meal delivered, and it was fabulous. But your family has to be on board with that. Yep. So that's definitely an option. But, you know, my mom likes to make the pies. So it's really important for her to do the pies. Great. Okay, you can do that one thing.
Right.
And then I said, I'm going to buy the mashed potatoes. And they're really actually better than yours. No, I'm not going to say that. But
can't say that.
No, we can't say that. But I mean, so you just talk about, you know, there's certain things that for me, it's fine. And no one can taste the difference. So why are we making this big deal?
Right. And it's just like with the gift giver. If acts of service or making a meal is something that brings them joy, I think this is a really important conversation with this holiday, is in our goal to simplify, we can actually take the one thing that they are excited about away from them. And that's going to build up resentment. So I love that you said you helped set up the table the day before, that pies could be made 2 days before, but not to steal the one thing that brings her pleasure. And I think one of the ways of doing it is to be enthusiastic about the thing that they love doing that you love. I love your strawberry rhubarb pie. And we cannot purchase that from someplace else.
Right.
So she can do the thing that makes her most excited.
There's a lot of pride in that. They're proud to bring that. My mother-in-law, it's really important that she brings something. Okay. She's embarrassed if she shows up to the party without something. So we have to kind of work together and think about, okay, what can she physically bring?
Absolutely. And that's a generational thing.
Yes.
A lot. I mean, it was very disrespectful to go someplace and not be bringing something. And the flip side is your mom is such an amazing cook. So everybody's like ooh and ahhing over Pat's food, and then your mother-in-law comes in with nothing. Right. She has to be able to bring something for her own sense of self and pride.
Yeah, and there's something about, like you said, the pride of I physically can't cook anymore, but if I can bring something that shows that I'm still a part of the celebration, I can contribute. At first I thought, I'm doing the right thing to say, you don't have to bring anything.
Oh, that's so true.
But then in actuality, it wasn't the right thing for her.
Oh, gosh, that's such a good point. It's like you thought you were being helpful. Isn't that funny? I mean, I think, so much of this whole process, and I guess it's life in general, but is being aware of that person and their needs, not what you would want if you were in their shoes.
I know. If someone told me I wouldn't need to, I would be like, hallelujah. Yeah, I don't need to bring anything.
That is all the initial transition when things get funky. But now we've got the later stages. We have got maybe full-on dementia, or my dad's in a hospital bed. So traditions have to change out of pure necessity at this point. It cannot look the same. So how do we navigate making sure that our elderly parents who are in pretty serious situations are still included in our holidays?
Yeah, and the one thing I just thought of too is, if they're coming over to your home, so you went to pick them up from assisted living. So, isn't this fabulous? Mom's going to be here. You really have to kind of look at your house and say, okay, are there throw rugs down?
Jeez.
Because their walker's going to catch, their toe's going to catch, and they're going to fall.
Good point.
What about your big dog that's going to jump on them? What about all the toys for your grandkids that are around? I mean, you really have to look at your house differently. When they're in assisted living, that's a safe environment, all those things are taken care of. You have to kind of think, okay, I've got to, not child-proof, but there are some things that need to be addressed. Elderly-proof. Yes. And if you want to stage an ambulance like they do at the sports events, just down the road, just in case. Just you could do that
nearby
too.
For the just such occurrence. Yeah, that is such a good point. And the other thing, as you were saying that, I was thinking about sometimes people have to eat at certain times. Yes. Blood sugar levels, taking medicine, or just old-fashioned habit. And God forbid if you're like, hey, we're going to be having the meal at 7. And they're like, it's 5 o'clock or nothing, babe. I mean, so you have to maybe change some of those old timings because, or have specific things that they need to have at that meal.
And even the timing of that too. I've noticed that if with dementia, or my mom doesn't have dementia, but she'll say, I'm tired and I can't think as well.
Right.
So it's good if you can have something, early afternoon where they're at their best versus, like you said, 7 o'clock.
Yep.
That is not a good time for elderly people. They're tired.
And
they're
3 o'clock
tired.
is typical for a lot of households, but maybe that's not good because the medicine has to be taken with a meal, and that's at 5 o'clock. So you are going to have to navigate a lot of different things that you never would have occurred to you before. It used to be, the kids are going to have to nap at that time. And that's what you're navigating. Same thing. You got to be looking at it.
So if they're coming to your house, think about what meds do they need? Do they need an extra set of clothes? Any equipment?
The equipment
their oxygen, is that full, ready to go? Are you bringing a half tank? That's not going to work.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those portable oxygens, they only last 2 hours.
Oh, good point.
We talked about the length of the gathering, and so have a plan. So, okay, let's say your family gets together and it's 8 hours. That's not uncommon. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, for
Christmas
sure.
Day. I mean, you're all
Yeah.
together. It's 8 hours.
You're watching
but
games, you're eating
right,
food.
your parents might not be able to stay there 8 hours. That's a long day for them.
Yeah.
So think about who is going to take them back home or back to their assisted living and have that planned out before.
That's a good
So you've got that plan and people don't feel like, well, I had to leave the party or
Right.
that would be something that you could do to help out because there's a physicality to that as well. So you don't want to have them so tired that they can't get into the car to get ready for
had
bed.
that.
And so there's things that they have to do yet when they get home. So they just can't be totally exhausted. They have to have a little reserve yet.
We don't think of it like, well, just go home, go to bed. And no, everything takes time and everything takes
another
effort.
Hour or two
Yep.
to get ready for bed.
And sometimes they can't travel. My dad was in a hospital bed. What was he supposed to do? So we did have small gatherings, but we always made sure to have the cranberry sauce out of the can and the stuffing. And, we had the traditions so that he could have his plate. He was no longer at the table, but he still had his plate of food. And I think honoring that, the traditions can get smaller and smaller, but you want to make sure that they feel included, and also, sometimes there's so many people at these events. And what did your mom say that she was just used to, like?
A quiet environment. So you have to think about their world is very simple. It's quiet. And then all of a sudden they're transported to this noisy home and kids and dogs and food and
everybody's laughing and talking
25
loud
people.
and the TV's on super loud.
And it's just overwhelming to them and they can shut down.
They can shut down. So you want to make sure that they get some space. Like you just keep your eyes on it. If there's a moment where you can see them starting to give that blank look or getting flustered, just say, hey, Mom, will you walk outside with me? Or hey, Dad, you want to, or empty out the room for a moment. But you definitely want them to feel included. So my dad, he was in a hospital bed in the center of the living room, but it was amazing how many times people would talk in another section of the room. They would have their back to him while they were talking. And not because they hate him or there's malintent. I took care of a friend in a wheelchair. I can't tell you how many times people would have a conversation above her head and not include her. Like I was like, hello, she's right there. It's really interesting. So I would go down to the bottom of the bed sometimes and just stand there so that people were forced to turn around to face me. And so that he would be included. It was just my little maneuver to try to get people to not put their back to him.
And people tend to be in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't have an open concept home, then they're sitting on the couch all by themselves and everybody's in the kitchen.
Really good point. Really good point. The other thing is hearing. If they have any hearing issues, that kind of massive amounts of noise makes it impossible to have a conversation. So can you take them off to the side and have a one-on-one at some point? Or we do have an episode on hearing loss, but there is the keeping an eye on the blank look, the blank nod, the smile nod that my dad would do. And when you see that, you might actually be a little bit of an interpreter. I would say things like, wait, what did you mean by? And a clarifying question. And then they would restate it. And then my dad would be like, and then they're like, oh, he just noticed what I was actually saying because it was all going by him. So you say that your mom always says she can't hear when there's.
Oh, so when there's a lot of conversation or background noise, her hearing aids don't work.
Got it.
So restaurant type situations, her hearing aids
is a Thanksgiving Day dinner.
Or a Christmas dinner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that you can also do to make them feel included, if they're no longer participating in bringing dishes or, they always say, what can I do to help? So think about, could they cut up the cucumbers or take the pickles out of the jar and put them on the plate or just something where maybe they could roll the napkins and the forks and the knives together. So think about a job that they could do sitting, not standing at the counter and be a part.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying is when the traditions change and the roles change and the responsibilities change, we still need to be aware that they want to be included. And it's about noticing and then coming up with ideas.
And again, I think, oh no, I don't need your help. You just relax.
I know.
And isn't that nice?
And they're like, right, I've been alone for the past month here, sitting here by myself. Can I at least be in with you guys in the kitchen?
And I want to be a part.
I want to be a part of it.
Because that's fun.
I think if anybody gets like hardly anything else, just remembering that for the upcoming holidays.
So we hope that you could have a little nugget here. And we do hope that you have a wonderful, blessed holiday with your family, and we care about you, and we care about you as a caregiver.
If you enjoyed our podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Next, we will continue the conversation on holidays. This time, we're going to focus on siblings. Yeah, we know, it's another tricky topic. But whether you're the one at home caring for your parents or you're the one flying in, we'll share some stories and give you some tools to help make your holidays easier. Thank you again for joining us. Until next time.
Two old friends talking to